There are many ways in which you might get onto your first Everest expedition. Mine was probably one of the more unusual ones. This was 18 years ago. I was supposed to be finishing up my master's thesis, so in fact I was lying around reading the Sunday newspaper. And in the paper was a story about the first South African Everest expedition. Now this interested me because I'd been climbing mountains for about 8 years by now. And next to this news story was an advertisement. This advertisement. Yes, not the most sensible way to try and find a woman to join a team. What they had was an all-male team and a newspaper sponsoring it who decided they didn't think the story was sexy enough. So to make it more interesting, they'd run this competition to find themselves a girl. The team leader tried to present it as if it was an apprenticeship. But the newspaper really were acting as if they were going to find themselves a girl and plant her on the summit like a flag. So I phoned up my girlfriends and said, well, have you seen this? And we all agreed it was horribly sexist. The men get invited and the women have got to do some kind of bikini parade in the media. And yet, someone was going to go. If I didn't apply, it wasn't going to be me. It wasn't that I had any dream of climbing Everest. It had never even occurred to me. At that point, I'd been as far as 6,000 meters in the Andes. Even the Himalaya seemed impossibly far away. But I'd recently read a book by Arlene Bloom, the first all-woman American expedition to the Himalaya. It's a very good book. And now I really wanted to go. But it was hard 20 years ago to get onto a Himalayan team. So here was this opportunity, and they were going to take a short list of 6 women to Kilimanjaro as a kind of selection, and I was sure I could make the short list. At the worst, I'd get a free trip to Kilimanjaro. So that's why I applied. And it worked. I got to Kilimanjaro, I got onto the Everest team. It wasn't that much fun to start with. Some of the men on the team weren't all that impressed by all the attention that this got. And even aside from some sexism within the team, there was some massive personality conflicts. There was some bad infighting in the group. Before we even got to base camp, 3 team members had walked out and gone home. So, none of this was what I'd been expecting from a Himalayan climbing trip. But nevertheless, I'm standing here, I'm standing at the foot of Everest, deep in the Himalaya, just for seizing that one opportunity. I'm sorry I can't be with you today. I'd love to meet all of you and have the time to actually talk to all of you, but I'm very far away. So what I'd like to do instead is just share with you a couple of ideas. Since I climbed Everest, I've gone on to have as my job working as an inspirational speaker. I fly around the world giving talks at big conferences, talking about teamwork and leadership based on this expedition as a case study, mostly because this expedition was so fraught. But what I want to do today is not talk to you about sort of teamwork or leadership in general terms, but rather about just a few key things that I think are interesting for women trying to operate in what remains a macho and male-dominated environment. So my first idea is this one about opportunity. It won't always come the way you want. It won't always be the ideal moment. Take it anyway, and then try and turn it to your own account. So, back on Everest, standing at the foot of the mountain, the people who've stayed on the team are quite a nice group of guys, but nevertheless, I really do feel as if I've got token woman branded across my forehead. I'm desperate to prove that I'm good enough to be here. And we start with the Khumbu Icefall. It's 1,000 vertical meters of these blocks of ice the size of houses, and in between the blocks are crevasses. These are slots that simply disappear down into darkness. And we cross them by making bridges out of ladders, normal ladders tied together end to end. And they're all tied off with ropes, and it's all quite unstable. Now, I'd never seen anything like this before. We get to the first ladder. I'm in front. What do I do? Well, let me share with you a photograph that I do not show to my corporate clients, who tend to be at least 70% male. This is my first crevasse crossing. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? You know, nice solid grip with both hands on the rungs, nice and stable. And the men stood there and they laughed and they took photographs. And I got to the other side and watched them come across. And of course, what you're supposed to do is walk across it, taking the safety ropes wrapped around your wrists and pulling them tight to give you a handrail. It's tricky, but once you get it, it's fairly easy. I walked over all the rest of them. There's nothing like ego to overcome fear. But I do think there's something that can hold women back. This is a generalization, but still. It's two sides of a coin. On the one side, we can get perfectionist. We don't want to do something until we have all the skills at the highest level. And on the other side, we can lack confidence. We can look at an opportunity and go, oh, no, I'm not good enough. I haven't done enough training yet. I haven't done all the courses. I don't have the qualifications. Whereas if you ask a guy, he'll just say, oh, yeah, I can do that. And he's probably lying through his teeth. But it works for them, mostly. You do not have to be good enough to finish these projects. You just have to be good enough to start, and then good enough to learn as you go. And that can take you from where you are right now to some place which you'd never even imagine going. So I'm going up the side of Everest. And this is not an easy season. This is the famous year of John Krakauer, Rob Hall, Scott Fisher, the IMAX team, and of course the Great Storm. And we are the team that didn't go. We got to 8,000 meters. We stayed at the top camp because we thought the weather was unstable. We were trapped there for 3 nights in that storm. As you may know, 5 climbers from other teams were killed. Everybody retreats back to base camp. Half the teams give up. And by now, this whole story is all over the South African media. I mean, they're following us as if we're a daily soap opera. And they think we're crazy to try again. And we're so careful. We miss the next summit window by being too cautious. That's when the IMAX team got to the top. And when we finally go, we've been on Everest for 9 weeks. We're the last team on the mountain. We leave at midnight, climb in pitch darkness. There's an amazing moment when the sun finally rises and you've just got the Himalayas spread out below you, purple and gold. Beautiful. And then I get the best moment of the whole expedition. It's not the summit. When I get to summits, I'm already worrying about going down again. It's when I got over onto the South Summit. It's the first place where you can see the famous knife edge ridge that runs towards the top, and the Hillary Step, which is this famous rock climb. And I stood there and I looked at this ridge and I thought, it's not that hard. I can do that. That was the first time I genuinely believed I was going to climb Everest. Up until then, it had all been just about seeing how far I could go. 2 more hours got me to the summit. We were the only team on the mountain, no queues, just the 6 of us. An amazing moment, the highest people on the face of the earth. And celebrating not just on the summit, back at base camp, all over the media in South Africa. We've got the live satellite link. We're talking to a radio station in South Africa. And they put my mother on the phone. So I've sort of got my mother's voice coming out of the radio, and it's, darling, where are you? You can go to the ends of the earth, and you still can't get away from your mother. But actually, it was pretty good. I mean, to stand there and talk to her, sitting in our home in Johannesburg, that was pretty good. And it's taken me a lifetime to realize the gift that was given to me by my parents. Now, my parents didn't do any of this stuff. They didn't have any interest in adventure. They just sat in the garden and drank cups of tea. And my parents, I was the youngest child, the only girl, and they'd already lost a son in a car crash. But I was the one who'd come home. I've joined the rock climbing club. I'm off to Central Africa to climb some mountain with some guy I hardly know. I'm on the Everest team. And there'd be these sort of 30 seconds of stunned silence, and then, okay, how can we help? That's all they ever said. How can we help? And that gift, particularly to girls, is enormous. Give it to your children. Support them as they try things, as they take risks, as they live with the consequences, as they pick themselves up and try again. And if you're not getting it from your parents, and you may well not be, find a significant other who can do that for you. Find a group of friends who can do that for you. A group of friends who, when you come up with your next crazy plan, say, that's amazing, how can we help? And standing on the summit of Everest, that opened a lot of doors. It allowed me to write a book, it got me onto the professional speaking circuit, it allowed me to raise sponsorship for future expeditions. And it can seem like, that kind of success is, enormously useful in moving forward. But it's not the only sort of important gift that I took away from that expedition. The other one was failure. And this may not sound obvious. I mean, we got to the top. But there'd been all that team infighting at the beginning. But even worse, 6 of us reached the summit. Only 5 got down. Bruce was killed on the way down. And we don't know exactly what happened. But the media were all over us. The blame game ran right across South African media. Everybody had an opinion about what we did and what we should have done and what went wrong and what kind of people we were. And a lot of people thought it was desperately selfish to do something this dangerous. And then, of course, that toxic mix, you add in a little bit of sexism. So I get back to base camp. What is supposed to be a quality newspaper in South Africa faxes their one burning question. And it's not, why did Bruce die? Or what was it like to summit? It's, are you having sex with the team leader? As if it would somehow be easier to climb Everest if I was sleeping with the team leader. And I hated all of this. I mean, I was a good girl. I wanted my parents to be proud. I wanted my teachers to like me. I was good at school and I hated failing. I chose things I knew I was good at so that I would never have to risk failing. It's not a good way to live your life. If you're going to do these kind of adventures, if you're going to put your hand up and say, I can raise this money, put together this team, organize these logistics, run a media campaign, get out there and do this thing that possibly has never been done before, there are so many ways that could fail. You just can't start these big risky adventures if you're not prepared to fail. And it's not fun to fail publicly. It's mortifying, it's humiliating. And thanks to the internet, it never goes away. 20 years later, all this stuff is still out there somewhere on Google. But it's okay. Life goes on, you go on, you live, you learn, you try the next thing. And it was so liberating to realize that it was okay to try, it was okay to fail. Standing on that summit from Everest, seeing all those other mountains, I just saw so much potential. And Everest is not the end. Everest is not the ultimate achievement in mountaineering in any sense. It is just one step on what is hopefully a lifelong journey. Once I would have looked at all those mountains and said, I can't. I'm a girl. I'm South African. I'm an amateur. I can't. And I do think there are things that I genuinely can't do. I don't believe we can do anything we want. There are realistically limitations. But most of us put limitations around ourselves that we don't even think about, and they're much too close in. If we push them, we're capable of going so much further. Last year, I was part of a team that climbed a new route on Nanga Parbat, the Mazeno Ridge. There were 6 of us. 4 of us got to 7,600 meters. We'd been climbing for 11 days alpine style. We had no food left, and we still had a 2-day descent down a route we'd never seen before. So 4 of us, myself included, decided too dangerous, we're going down. And it was the right choice for me. But we had positioned our 2 strongest climbers to push on for the summit. They succeeded, some huge risks, but they succeeded. New route on an 8,000 meter peak. And I'd never have been there if it hadn't been for taking that bizarre opportunity to go to Everest nearly 20 years ago. Just by being here at this Women's Leadership and Adventure Summit, you have seized an opportunity. You have surrounded yourself by a group of like-minded people. Now you just need to have the courage to start some exciting project. Tell yourself that it's okay if you fail. It's about the journey. It's about everything that you're going to learn by taking part in whatever this is that captures your passion out there in the mountains. Get out there, give it a try, good luck, and have fun.